Okay, I think we're streaming. Wait one moment while I confirm that we're going. And then Sam, let me know if the audio is okay too. And just so you guys know, if you can hear me, we will probably start maybe in a few minutes just to make sure that people can find us and that we have everything confirmed on our end. So for now, you just get to see me sitting here. Okay, I see one person saying that they can see me. This is the fun part. Let's see. Oh, did I freeze? Oh, no, I did not freeze. Okay. It looks like I might need to change resolutions really quick. Oh, wait, no, maybe it's working now. It might be okay now. All right, we're good. So just to give it a few more minutes, I'm just going to kind of explain what's going to go on today. And then when I confirm that there's a few more people watching and that everything is good, then we can jump into the actual presentation and we can start chatting and all of that fun stuff. In general, today is just going to be me talking through information about the program, admissions. I'll talk a little bit about our faculty, and then some of our physical spaces. And then at any point during this, you can always jump into that chat. Feel free to ask as many questions as you want. It's quite possible that I might answer some of those later on in the presentation, but we do have Samantha Mundell, our other advisor, in the chat, and she can answer anything in the meantime as well. Just keep in mind that if she answers kind of shortly, that it's probably because I'm going to go over it more, but she'll be in there as well. In any case, if you have questions after today, you can always reach out to me or you can reach out to Sam. But any prospective students, feel free to send me an email. And all of that information is on our website, but my email is just my first last name at ucf.edu, so samantha.jackson. And we're just gonna go ahead and get started in about 2 more minutes. I posted something on Twitter, but I did not post something on our Facebook page. So I'm going to go ahead and do that super quickly. So you get to see me sharing this. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you've been looking forward to it. We figured that this would be helpful for people who can't make our physical open houses. And it's also a lot more comfy for people to just sit in their living room and learn about it and hear from an advisor. So hopefully this is something that we can keep doing later on. Let me just go ahead and move things around really quick. Ooh, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Like I said previously, if you have questions at any time, go ahead and plop those into that chat. Samantha Mundell, our other advisor and our admissions chair, is in there, so she can answer any questions. If I see a bunch of questions repeated over and over, I'll go ahead and answer those as well. But I might be talking a bunch, so she'll be there. So in general, welcome to our first virtual open house. We also have a physical open house every year during the summer. So if you're in town for that, feel free to join us. We, at those open houses, also have some of our faculty there. We usually have our program director. We have current students. We also do a tour of some of our spaces, and that's one of the only times that we can do that. So we're trying to fit some of those things in a different way for this, but it's definitely a great opportunity to go and visit any schools that you're interested in person. So I highly recommend doing that. So here we go. I have to figure out how best to do this. All right. So at first, I'm just going to go over all of the faculty members that we have. This is Dr. Patrick Pavian. He is our program director. He also teaches classes here as well. Oh, is it on automatic? Oh, it is. Here, you also get to see me do this. Okay, there we go. All right, so, and all of this faculty information is also on our website, so definitely go check in there. You can read more about their research interests, but I'm just going to do a very brief overview here. Dr. Smith is one of our anatomy professors. He's been with us for quite a while, so he's really the chief anatomy person over there, but he will be leaving us soon. So we also have another anatomist with our program. I'm going to go over him a little bit later, but they sort of head the anatomy lab, which is one of our, a little bit biased, but one of our favorite parts of our program. Dr. Rothschild, she is board certified in orthopedics and sports and is also working on some women's health certification as well. Dr. Dawson is one of our geriatrics professors, as well as a bunch of other stuff. She covers some of the fun intro stuff the first few years, the technical, not as exciting stuff, but she makes it fun. And she also is one of the people over at the iMove Lab, the Innovative Mobility Initiatives Lab, and she works with a few different things over there. Dr. Tucker is the other professor that's over at the iMove Lab. She is on the pediatric side, so the iMove Lab does a few different things, but one of the things that they do is connect pediatrics and geriatrics and mobility for both groups. And so she also runs Go Baby Go. They have their own website, so you can definitely go check that out. But Go Baby Go is one of the big kind of branch projects of our program. She also helps Dr. Beato with the cafe downstairs. There's a harness system down there. So if you're ever able to visit the campus, or if you already go to classes here, definitely go down and check out that cafe. Dr. Haney, he does a few different of the, what does he usually say for them? He does sort of the, he has like a funny joke about this, but a lot of the manipulation classes. Dr. Soni, he's the other anatomist that I mentioned before. So he is really in charge of a lot of the anatomy courses in our program. He is an anatomist, so a lot of these professors, you're going to see that they have certifications or degrees in the things that they're teaching. So you're getting professionals and experts in the fields teaching those classes. So for example, you have an anatomist teaching your anatomy. You have people certified in geriatrics, teaching your geriatrics classes, just for an example. Dr. Neely is our Director of Clinical Education for our program. So along with teaching different courses, she also guides students in the process of the clinicals, and Samantha Mundell also helps a little bit with that. Dr. Beato is another geriatrics professor as well as neurology. And feel free, like I said, go onto our website and you can read all of these fun facts and their education history. And then Dr. Stock does a lot of the research classes for the program. He is also big into physiology, so he's teaching the physiology courses. Dr. Dyson does a few different courses here and there. He has an experience in intensive care and worked in the ER for quite a while, so he covers a lot of courses based around that. He's one of the professors, along with Dr. Neely and a few others on and off, doing the integrations course, which is a course where our students are able to essentially practice for the clinic by pretending to be patients and working on those students and then switching. So you get a lot of the experience that you need before going into the clinic. And then Samantha Mundell, who is in the chat right now, is our other advisor. She is also our admissions chair. She helps out with clinical placements with Dr. Neely, and she does a lot of other things for the program. So a cool thing about Samantha Mundell and I, my name is Samantha Jackson, by the way, and I go by Jax. Cool thing about the two of us is that you have two staff members here to work with you with a history in higher education. So I have my master's in higher education and policy studies. She has her master's in higher education administration. So you have two advisors for current students as well as prospective students who are here to make your time with the program as great as possible. Prospective students are going to go ahead and reach out to me with any questions that you might have. And then the cool thing about having Samantha Mundell here is that, as well as being admissions chair, she does reach out and speak with students who are reapplying to the program. So if you apply and you don't get in and you want to keep trying, which we highly recommend you don't just stop there, you can reach out to Samantha Mundell and she will sit down with you, go over your application and figure out what are the best steps in order to reapply and have a more competitive application. I just saw a comment about prospective students. Yes, so to reach out to Samantha Mundell as a reapplicant automatically gives you a chance to be a stronger prospective student. She is also going to make note of it in your application that you did meet with her, so it's definitely a beneficial thing to do. So before I go into physical therapy, I know that there's a little bit of a delay, but if you have any questions about faculty members, I will try my best to answer them. But just let me know. Samantha Mundell is also in the chat. For anyone who's new here, we also have got Samantha Mundell in there to answer any questions that you might have that I might not see. So, physical therapy. I will start this off by saying that the two advisors here today are not physical therapists. So if you have any questions that I might not be able to answer, my first suggestion is always to start observation hours if you haven't already. Go out, meet with PTs, ask them questions, ask them about what their day-to-day is like, and we'll go over those observation hours a little bit more later. But physical therapy in general, it's all about optimizing movement in order to improve just life experiences, the human experience. So a very brief history of PT is that it started out actually as a women-led profession. So during the war, there were something called Reconstruction aides. So this was women helping soldiers coming back to regain mobility, to basically be able to kind of live their lives again after drastic wounds. And then through that, the first professional association was created in 1921, and that is when PT became more of a profession and more of a well-known thing. And then through that, the American Women's Physical Therapy Association was made. That changed over to the American Physiotherapy Association in the late 1930s, and that's when everything kind of boomed. So that's when men also became involved. And PTs were, of course, in great demand during the 40s and 50s due to World War II and the polio epidemic as well. Is that going to go? All right. So just a very brief overview of what physical therapists do. They do a lot. So when you think of physical therapy, you might think of a few things depending on what your experience might be with them. A lot of people think of sports, so you see a bunch of sports teams up here. And you also think of people who have gone through, heavy surgeries and are needing to relearn how to walk. There are, as you can see on this page, a few different things. So we have some pediatrics on there, we have some geriatrics on there, we have some, well, a lot. And there's really just a lot of different types of PT, and we'll go over those specializations and I think just a few slides forward. But PT even goes heavy into research, so you'll see a few pictures up here that are research based, and then also things that you don't usually think of, like you see a Cirque du Soleil picture up there. A lot of people are going out into different performing companies and things like that to help those people as well. So when you want to be a PT, what are the first steps? Well, you do need a DPT. It's a doctoral degree. It's a Doctor of Physical Therapy degree. And then about 222 colleges and universities offer those PT programs. It has to be a doctorate. So as of 2015, all are DPT. As of 2010, I believe, DPT became the norm and the requirement. There are 10 DPT programs offered in the state of Florida. That might have increased recently. I don't know how recently that was changed. There's about 10. So once you have that DPT, after graduation, you must pass a licensure exam, and that's state administered. And then you have different requirements depending on what state you want to practice in. So graduates from our program, for example, will take the licensure exam and then make sure that if they are leaving the state of Florida, that they're carrying through other requirements state by state. And we always I help students with that. Dr. Pabian also helps students make sure that all of those things are set in stone. And a lot of those guides are online as well. Just to give you an idea of what the PT profession looks like once you're there, the median pay is about 88 grand. The top pay is around 122. And that really depends on a lot of different things. So don't think that out of the bat you're automatically going to be making 90 grand no matter what. It's going to depend on what position you're taking, how many years of experience you have, the degree of education you have. So if you have certifications, for example, on different specializations, then you might be making more pay. It also depends on where you are and a few different other things. So whether or not you're traveling, what setting you're in. I saw the question about prep courses about the licensure exam. Yes. So our students actually have their own prep course that they take completely on their end. And then we also have something called the PEAT, P-E-A-T, that we offer students. So we buy it through our program, and our students are given that PEAT exam. And that's retired versions of the licensure exam, so it's very legit. And then students also have another form that they can take on their own. So required ones through our program, and then they can take that other one whenever they feel will best help them. So there's a lot of growth in PT, as you can see, and there are a lot of jobs. So it's always a growing and changing profession. All right. So now we're going to get into a little bit more about the program itself. This is the stuff that I know more about. So if you have any questions at any time, let me know. So a little bit about us. Like I said, we're a professional doctorate degree. So our program is the doctoral degree. We don't have a bachelor's in physical therapy or a master's in physical therapy. And we'll go over the undergraduate requirements for a program a little bit later, but for us, we're the DPT. We are a lockstep 3-year curriculum, and it happens over 9 consecutive semesters. We start in May every year, and then you graduate in May 3 years later. We have 4 clinical rotations throughout your time here, totaling about 36 weeks of full-time clinical training where you're out there and getting that practical knowledge. We also have a research component called our capstone course, and that takes place over a few different years, culminating in that final research presentation. That's the capstone research project that Dr. Stock is in charge of. Graduates of our program, like I said earlier, are then eligible to take that licensure exam. Just to brag about us a little bit, we do have a 100% pass rate for the MPTE exam. We do have a 100% employment rate for our students after 6 months after graduation as well. So I talked a little bit way back when about how broad PT can be. There are a few different areas of specialty, some of those being, okay, I don't know why it stopped there. Some of those being, all of those being the things listed right here. So orthopedics, neurology, sports, geriatrics, oncology, pediatrics, women's health, clinical electrophysiology, and cardiovascular and pulmonary. So these are things that you can get specialties through the American Board of Physical Therapy specialties. Through the American Board of Physical Therapy, you can get these specialties. Forgive me. So that is after you graduate our program, after you have licensure, you can go into these specific things. Our students are awesome. So this is just a brief overview of our curriculum. So we go through a very wide variety of topics in our program. This is just a brief overview of our foundational sciences. So when you're entering the program, we know that you're good, we know that you're competitive. Now we need to kind of build you up from square one. So we have gross anatomy and physiology, neuroscience, pharm, and kinesiology, kind of building that foundational science background for you. Oh yes, good point, Samantha. Many of our faculty are also specialists. So when we went through that faculty list earlier, a lot of the faculty teaching courses in specific things are have specialties in those specific areas. So we have the best of the best. So then clinical sciences, we go more into orthopedics, pediatrics, neurology, radiology, primary care, and differential diagnoses. And then we also have research and evidence-based practice curriculum within our program as well. So that's things like that capstone course, different research courses throughout your time here, beginning in year 1, and then also advanced clinical science coursework as well. So a little bit into admissions. So the admissions process, I'm sure many of you have questions about this because we are in the middle of it right now. The admissions process is once a year. We only do it once, and it starts in early July and has a November 1st deadline. So if you are applying this cycle, you have until November 1st to get everything into us. And then if you're applying 3 years from now, most likely it's still going to be November 1st of that year. And that's for a May start date every year. So if you weren't aware before, we start in the summer only. About 900 applicants are received every year, and that is including people who are out of state and people who don't completely finish their application, just to give you a bit of a more realistic idea of what those applications are made of. But usually it's around 800 to, I think the most we had was, I want to say it was almost 1,200 a couple years ago. So from that 900 or so applicants, we then interview the top 150 candidates, and we'll go over how we determine that number. And then that interview process happens, and then 38 students are selected to join our program every year in May. So we have 2 different applications that we go through. All of our application materials are through PTCAS, so PTCAS, and that's that website right there, ptcas.org. So what do you need to do to get in? We require a bachelor's degree prior to starting, though you can still have it in progress at the time of admission. You just have to have it finished before you start the program. We do have a list of prerequisite courses. We will go into more detail about those. This says check the handout included in the folder. Didn't catch that when I was editing this, but it is included on our website. So if you go to our website and you go to the admissions tab, there is prerequisite info on there as well as an FAQ sheet. Those things are usually handed out during our physical open houses, and that's where you're going to find all of this information later on as well. We also require the GRE, which is a giant standardized test if you're not familiar with it. And then 50 observation hours under a licensed PT, 3 letters of recommendation, one of which has to be from a PT, and then we have that interview portion of the admissions process as well. And that interview is by invitation only. So like I said, we invite the 150 or so applicants to then interview with our program. Prereq class can be up to 10 years old. So that previously was 7. So if you've been following our admissions requirements for a while, that did change a couple years ago to 10 years. So we do need a complete application. I saw that Sam Mundell did mention that in the chat. Everything has to be completed by November 1st, where we cannot consider that application. So that includes all of the supplemental materials like the GRE, like those observation hours being confirmed by that PT, and those letters of rec need to be in by November 1st. Then we also have the UCF graduate application. We'll go a little bit more into that, but it's just a supplemental application, and we do require that a month later. So all of your attention can be on PTCAS. We know that that's a giant beast, and then just make sure that that supplemental is in a month later. Observation does have to be under a licensed PT. Cannot be a PTA. So just to go over those updates that we've had in the past few years, we did change from 7 to 10. And then also the minimum number of observation hours under a PT went from 30 to 50. So previously we had 30 and then a weighing system if you had more than that. It's changed to 50 and now it's a check mark. So once you have 50 hours completed, you're done. We'll go over observation hours a little bit more later, but having more observation hours past 50 isn't going to increase your chances of getting in, essentially. We want you to really think about what you're learning in those observation settings and what you're getting out of it more than just the number on the sheet. And then because we have changed that weighting system for the observation hours, the GRE and GPAs were then upped a little bit in how much they weigh. So Nick Coletti, I saw your question about updating your prerequisite courses. After the fall semester, that's a great question. You can do the academic update period through PTCAS. You can have up to 2 prerequisites in progress in the fall and 1 in the spring of your application year. And then you just have to make sure that you're doing that academic update period that happens through the PTCAS application after, I think it's in mid-December that opens. Sam, correct me if I'm wrong about that. I know that the dates are on here later though. So, like I said previously, all application things must be submitted through PTCAS. You're not sending any of this extra stuff through the supplemental application. This is PTCAS only. And then make sure all program-specific requirements are met. So today I'm going to go over everything that we require specifically for our program, but a lot of these details, including the prerequisite courses, the observation hours, those are going to vary from program to program. So if you go on PTCAS, this is just a good way to go about this if you're kind of just starting to see the differences, go to PTCAS and open all of those school pages. A lot of that information is listed right there in a very brief overview, and then you can go onto their websites to learn more. So a little bit more about that supplemental application. It's due December 1st, like I mentioned, and it is required for all applicants. So I know that this isn't as big of an application process as PTCAS, but don't forget about the supplemental. And then it's basically just a $31 fee, and you're entering in your info, and then you click submit. So you're not sending transcripts here. You're not sending GRE scores here. This is just the application that's on the UCF College of Graduate Studies website. That way you're in the system. It's a requirement through UCF. We just have to have it done. All right, so a little bit more on your undergrad curriculum before applying to our program. We don't require a specific major. So if you are trying to major in something that will look better for us, go with your gut on what you're more interested in. There are some majors that will kind of cover a lot of those prerequisite courses for you, but you can also get those done outside of it. So just for an example, we have a lot of students who are majoring in some sort of health or science field. We also have students who are majoring in business or communications or digital art. So you can get all of your requirements done for our program regardless of major. Your undergraduate degree can be in progress, like I mentioned, as long as it's done before beginning the program, which happens in summer. So if you're graduating in spring, then you're good to go. And then, like I mentioned, and I will harp on this, everything has to go through PTCAS. So transcripts need to be sent directly to PTCAS, and that includes all transcripts from any institution that you've taken classes at. So for the GRE, we weighed the GRE the highest of any other information that you're giving us during this first section of your application. We do super score. So if you take it multiple times, we will take the highest of each individual section to create your score. And then for the GRE, if you're not sure when to take it, you need to take it within 5 years of applying. GRE scores do expire, and that's just the ETS company rule. So we can't consider them past that. And then we highly recommend that you take them at least 2 weeks before that November 1st deadline, though I would honestly urge you to take it a little bit before that. Scores can take sometimes a week, sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes a month to get through. And if we don't get those scores in time, we cannot consider your application complete. And we definitely don't want that to be the reason why we can't look over your application. We do have a specific PTCAS code for the GRE. This is so important. If you take anything from today, remember this code. It's all over our website. It's all over our FAQ sheets. It's on the PTCAS page for us. 3871 is our PTCAS code. So many people call me up asking why we haven't received their GRE scores the day before the deadline, and we find out it's because they sent it to the wrong code. So you can always log into your ETS account to double check where those scores were sent and what codes they were sent to. And if they went to the wrong code, you can always resend them. Check that before you think that you need to. All right, so prerequisite courses. I saw a bunch of questions about this a little bit earlier. It sounds like Sam is getting a lot of them done. But oh, good point, Sam, don't wait to take the GRE. So like I said, deadline, November 1st. If you're trying to super score, meaning that you want to take it multiple times, you do have a 21-day wait period in between each test, and you're going to want more time in between those to study. So if you are taking it, let's say, just a month before that deadline, hopefully we get those scores in time, and hopefully you don't want to take it again, for example. So the further out you take the GRE, the more time you have to retake and to ensure that we get those scores in time. So for prerequisite courses, we have a minimum GPA requirement for both the prerequisite courses and the last 60 credit hours of your undergraduate or most recent degree. So that can be either your bachelor's degree, second bachelor's, master's, whatever the most recent degree that you've taken for the last 60 credit hours. Both of those GPAs we require a 3.0. And then for the prerequisite courses, we do require a C grade or higher. We highly recommend that you retake C's, not only because you're going to make sure that you are more confident in the foundational sciences when you get into our program, but also because one C is going to drastically decrease that prereq GPA. So often I have prospective students coming into my office asking how to be more competitive, and usually my first answer is retake those 2 C's. That prereq GPA is going to drastically jump, and you can test that for yourself. Letters of recommendation. One second, I just saw a question. No, the letters of recommendation do not have to be from a PT that you do observation hours with. That is usually where you're going to find PTs who will know you well enough to write observation hours. So they can be from that person, or they can be from any PT that you know, that you believe will write a letter of recommendation that best represents you. So prerequisite courses, like we said, 2 in the fall, 1 in the spring, and that's the max you can take, though preferences are usually given to applicants who have all of their prereqs completed at the time of the deadline. And the reason behind that is when we're looking at applications and we see the bigger picture of someone who has everything done, that person's automatically going to be more competitive than someone who might still have a few classes in progress. So regardless of when everything is completed, if everything's in by that November 1st deadline, we're considering your application. And if you have everything submitted in the academic update period, we are taking that into account. But if you're more competitive before the academic update, you're probably going to have more of a chance of getting invited to interview with us than if we have to wait until that last date to see whether or not you are competitive. Sorry, I keep going back and forth between reading questions and reading the slide. So if you see me kind of zone out, that's why. PTCAS does calculate your prereq GPA once they submit their application, but Samantha Mundell goes in and reassigns those courses. Well, I don't know if they completely calculate your prereq GPA, but they calculate your GPA. So it's kind of fun watching her go in and make sure that all of the correct courses are listed there. So for example, if you've taken 4 biology courses and 2 of them would more heavily benefit you, let's say that you have 3 A's and a B, and 2 of those A's are 4 credit hours and one's 3 credit hours, she'll go in and make sure that those 2 4 credit hour A's are what we're considering for your prereq GPA. So she's going in there and making sure that everything is correct, that it best reflects you, and that we're not assigning prereq credit towards a course that doesn't meet all of our requirements as well. So courses older than 10 years cannot be accepted. Online courses can happen, but all labs, thanks Sam, all labs must be face-to-face. So you can have a hybrid course where the lecture is online, but the lab needs to be in a face-to-face format. So anatomy and physiology, chemistry, physics, missing one off the top of my head, it's gone now. All of those labs need to be in a face-to-face format. Things like biology, psychology, and statistics can be completely online. And these courses can be taken anywhere that's regionally accredited. So you can take them at, if you're local, for example, you can take them at UCF, you can take them at Seminole, you can take them at Valencia. State and community colleges are fine. We're not going to place weight heavier over, let's say, UCF rather than Valencia. As long as those courses meet all of our requirements for that course, you're good to go. So we mentioned this a little bit earlier, but the academic update period through PTCAS opens December 16th, and then that priority deadline ends January 15th. So if you have some of those prerequisite courses in progress in the fall and the spring, you're going to make sure that at the end of that fall semester, you're getting in those courses that you had in progress to us. That's going to make sure that we get the bigger picture of who you are as an applicant. Okay. So observation hours, like I said, we did change this, so now we require 50 observation hours, and then it's a check mark. So if you're getting thousands of hours, it's not going to make you more competitive than someone who has, let's say, 80. What we want you to concentrate on here is what you're getting out of those hours. They need to be under the direct supervision of a licensed PT. They have to be verified through PTCAS. So on the PTCAS application, you're going to list your hours and the contact information for the PT who's going to sign off on them, and they'll go in and verify those through PTCAS. A variety of settings is recommended, but it's not required. Just make sure that you know what your passion is here before you get into paying for a program like this. You're making sure that PT is what you want to do. And also you're meeting a variety of different PTs, and you're seeing how drastically different settings can be, so you're getting more out of that experience. Hours do not expire, so if you're applying 4 years from now, you can go ahead and start them now if you want, and you can list all of those on your PTCAS application. And all of those hours, like I said, are through PTCAS. So you can go onto PTCAS just to look over that process as well and become more familiar with it. And all of the PTCAS application info is on there. You can walk through that right now through their application instructions tab and sort of see step by step what that application is going to look like before you even open it. For observation hours, because those hours don't expire, we do recommend that you keep track of them somehow on your own. So you can't report them until you're applying, but you can keep an Excel sheet for yourself. You can have your own paper form that you fill out and that the PTs sign off on, and you keep that contact information for those PTs. So later on down the road, when you are filling out your PTCAS application, you can make sure that all of that information is accurate. And just a quick tip, if you have that form with that PT signature on it, if you show that to them later on, they'll probably remember more who you are and what happened and feel more confident verifying those hours than if you stopped in for 10 hours once and left, and now they're like, did you actually come here? So keep track of them as best as possible prior to starting this PTCAS application. Recommendation letters, we require 3, one of which has to be from a PT. The other 2 can be from anyone you believe will best represent you. They can be from other PTs, they can be from a supervisor, they can be from a professor, they can be from a community leader that you've worked with, whoever you believe will best represent you. Don't put 3 PTs just because you think that it will look better if one of those PTs doesn't actually have anything really substantial to say about their experience with you. We want those recommendation letters to really reflect who you are as an applicant. These are also directly through PTCAS. Please don't mail us any recommendation letters. We will not open them. We don't have time to do that. But we will see them through PTCAS, and they are done through a very specific portal through PTCAS. So when you're going in there, you're going to once again list contact information for these references. They'll go in and submit a form that PTCAS makes for them. And once again, ptcas.org/references will have more information about that process. So you've filled out PTCAS. Good point, Sam. It's always a good idea to give PTs a heads up before PTCAS contacts them about observation hours. That way they know to look out for that. If we don't get those hours verified before the November 1st deadline, your application is still incomplete. So for reference letters, for observation hours, if you're ever relying on an outside source to get information into that PTCAS application, act as soon as possible. to make sure that all of the parties know what to expect. Do all of the work on your end that you can so that they're working less. So yes, Sean, they do have a paper form. You cannot get that really until you're starting the application. So there is also a paper form that you can fill out specific from PTCAS. In the meantime, you have to keep track of them however works best for you. So you've filled out the application, you're done. You're part of the 150 applicants that we are considering for the program to interview. How does that happen? We're looking at 4 things. 3 of those are numbers that we're weighing. So the GRE, first and foremost, if you're looking at sort of a scale of how heavily weighed things are, the GRE is going to be the top weighed thing. Then the prerequisite GPA, then the last 60 credit hour GPA, and then observation hours are a check mark. So all of those things are going to determine whether or not you land within the top 150 applicants. And that number is give or take, once again, depending on how many volunteers we have to work with. But then you're invited to an interview. And so when we are doing that interview, we're going to pick up the phone and call you and let you know that you're invited. So it's not going to be an email. So make sure that your email is correct on PTCAS, but also that your phone number is correct on your application. And those dates are listed right there. So we make sure that those dates are listed usually about a year out, give or take, a little bit less than that. Once our application cycle ends, we make sure to update those next dates. Those dates are set in stone. So if you are not able to make the date that we are able to offer you, you may not get the opportunity to interview with us. We have those dates planned out far in advance so that you can plan around them. So how will you know if you get an interview? Like I said, we will call you. Make sure that your voicemail box has room in it. So often I have to just try to call and get a hold of you, but if we can't get a hold of you, then we move on. So make sure that your voicemail box is empty and that your email is correct. And then we will call you and invite you to interview. The interview format is a group interview. So you are going to be sitting with usually 2 other interviewees, with usually 2 or 3 faculty members, maybe a community member, as well as a current student. And that current student is not giving you a grade of any sort, but they are helping out with the conversation. And so this group interview, everyone is still having their own questions. So you don't have to worry about the person next to you answering the question the same way that you would. You're going to get a different question. So in our interview, we are there to learn more about who you are as a human being. The interviewers are blinded to your scores at this point. They don't know what you got on the GRE. They don't know what your GPAs are. We know that you're academically competitive enough to get to that point. They want to know more about what your passions are, how they align with our program, how you fit in with the faculty. And it's behavioral-based questions. So it's not necessarily something that you can completely prepare for. You can't quiz yourself on details about the program or something, thinking that we might ask questions about that. But you can look up more about behavioral interviews just to kind of get comfortable with that idea. So after the interview, what happens? So that is when we start our admissions process, essentially, of finding out who will join the cohort. Usually people will not hear back from us until after that last interview, though some people, if they are preferenced, will hear from us earlier on in the process, possibly only a few days after the interview that they're in. Most people will not hear back from us until after all of the interviews are complete. And then that is also done through phone. That's when Samantha Mundell picks up the phone and calls you and lets you know that you're in the program. It's always really fun sitting in the office next to her because I can sometimes hear how excited people get on the other end of the phone. And I know that she has a lot of fun with that as well. So we make sure to call you and, get that human experience as part of this process. So like I said, 38 students are accepted into each cohort every year. And if you're ever not sure where you are in the process, so let's say that you submitted your application and you did or did not get an interview, but you're just wondering what's going on, where is everything? We do send out automated emails through PTCast, and we also send out updates throughout the process to let you know where we are. So make sure that you're checking your inbox for those. But in general, this can take a while. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Depending on the part of the process, I might not be able to give you much more information than we are currently interviewing or we are currently overlooking applications. Yeah, see, I knew calling people is Sam's favorite part of the job. So let's say that you are given an offer to join the cohort. You get that call from Sam. What's happening after that? So you do have a period of time to make that decision, to chat with family members, to consider other options, to make sure that you have everything lined up. And that really depends, that period of time depends on when you're given that offer. So let's say that you are given an offer right off the bat, all of the interviews are done and you're part of that first round of calls. You usually have about 2 weeks to think about everything and then get back to Samantha Mundell and give us your decision. Let's say that we are then further down the line and we're going through that wait list at that point and just trying to fill a spot. And we have, let's say, a month before classes start, because that can happen. At that point, we might be looking at a couple days, 24 hours, depending on how close we are to really needing that spot to be filled. So at that point, you should really kind of know where you're going in general either way, but keep in mind that the period of time that you might have to consider that spot can very greatly change. Waitlists do not roll over. Good question, John. Every year, our application process starts from the beginning. So if you are within that top 150 who interview, at that point, we take 38 students who are offered seats, and we only offer 38 at a time. If one of those seats is a no, then we go to the next person in the wait list. And then at the end of that period, once we have that 38, the rest of those students on the wait list are urged to reapply next year. So if you are on the wait list, it's not the end of the line. We do usually dip into that. Sometimes it's a 3-tiered wait list. Sometimes we are only a few people into the first tier, and sometimes we're starting into that third. So it really can vary year to year how deep we go into inviting students on the wait list into the cohort. And then, is there a deposit required to hold your seat? No. Different programs are going to have different rules on this. Some schools do require a deposit to hold your seat. We are not requiring a deposit. What that means on our end is that we need to know from you as soon as possible if anything changes, if you are accepted into another program that you are going to take that offer over ours. We need to know that so that we can open that spot immediately for another student. Sam can also see that on her end. So if you're accepting offers from someone else, we can see that that's happening as well, or if you're given offers from other people. So we just need as much transparency as possible from your end to ensure that everyone who might have a chance into our program is given that chance. Oh, it's gonna do this for each little thing. All right. So just a few keys to success. I know that we're going over a lot right now, and it can get a little overbearing when you're on that PTCast application, but there are a few things to really think about during and before the admissions process. Observation hours. Start that early on. So especially if you're not sure whether or not you want to be a PT, if people walk in here and they're really just starting this process from square one, my first recommendation is always to start observation hours. Not only are you just getting a requirement done, but you're also ensuring that this is what you want to do. Observation hours can also be tricky to get. So there is something through the APTA called Find a PT. You can Google that. There's also a link in our FAQ sheet if you want to just copy and paste that. And it's essentially a search bar for PTs. So you can enter in, hey, Dr. Stock. You can enter in your city and state or your zip code and then how far you're willing to travel. And a list of licensed PTs in that area will pop up. And you can also prioritize that by specialty if you're looking for observation hours with a specific setting or specific specialty. And that will help you reach out to individuals rather than big companies that might be harder to hear back from. But in general, they can be tricky to get, especially in a busy place like Central Florida. So really start that process early. Check the admissions requirements frequently. We do change things every now and then, not usually too big, and the past 2 changes have, if anything, been only beneficial to applicants, but always keep that out there. There are no upcoming changes to the program as of right now, but if any of those things happen, we do make sure to put that out as soon as possible. Critical courses, anatomy and physiology. These things are heavy in our curriculum as it is. Within your first semester within our program, you're kind of really getting deep into these core foundational classes. In that first year in our program, we liken it to drinking through a fire hose. We are shoving these things as heavily as possible to make sure that you have that foundational knowledge for the rest of the curriculum. So anatomy and physiology are only going to help you down the line. Plan for the GRE. When you're taking that GRE, you need to prep for it as if it is a semester-long class. So do not take it lightly. It is not a test that you can study for in a week and then be ready for, even if you're great at standardized testing. And if you're not great at standardized testing, I urge you to also think about the setting that you'll be in for the GRE. So a lot of standardized testing anxiety is focused around the atmosphere. So you're in usually some sort of random computer lab in your city. There's not a lot of breaks that you get. You can't get up and walk around whenever you want. You can't step away from the test whenever you want. So sit down with a practice test. Give yourself that same space and time that you would for the real GRE test and test yourself like that. There are a lot of different prep materials out there for the GRE. There are in-person courses. I know that UCF has a few different ones, and then there's some in the community as well. There are books, there are apps. A lot of our students recommend something called Magoosh, M-A-G-O-O-S-H. It's an app that helps prep for the GRE as well. So there's a lot out there that can help prepare you. Don't procrastinate. If you do, then you're probably looking at possibly waiting another year before applying. So if at any point you're not sure if you're ready to apply, or if you think that maybe you need to retake a course and you just didn't think about it until now, or if you are procrastinating on the GRE or observation hours, come in and chat with me. I can tell you whether or not it's realistic to apply now, or if you will definitely need to wait another year to really boost up that application and make sure that it's complete. Be proactive, stay organized, all of the things that you should do no matter what, applying to any school. Make sure that you're on top of things. And then really research each program that you're interested in and the PT profession in general. So when you're looking into different courses, like I said, it's going to be beneficial if you can to visit those courses in person. I know that's not always realistic, but if it's at all possible, it's really going to benefit you. And then think about the different things that each program offers. So for example, Something that we always mention is the anatomy lab, and a lot of our students talk about that as well, about how we have an anatomy lab with our own cadavers that our students really take ownership of. They have them for themselves from day one when we get them. And that experience is something that's pretty unique for a PT program. They're not prosected or anything like that. So learning the little details about that and how curriculum varies from program to program, and then also just being able to get the feel of that program. Interview processes are going to be pretty helpful for that. Not every program does in-person interviews, so that's another thing to consider. All right, a few more keys to success. Prerequisites, obviously important. We went over those a lot, but let me know if you have any other questions. Like we said, treat the GRE like it's a semester-long course, a 4-credit-hour course. Study as if it was that. Taking the GRE at least twice is really only going to help you. I know that that's not realistic for everyone, but we do super score, and it's once you take it once, the second time you already know what to expect. You're a little bit more comfortable with that standardized testing environment. And the weird thing that is standardized testing in terms of specific questions and the format of the test itself. Observe in multiple PT settings. So like I said, a variety of settings is highly recommended, not required, but highly recommended. So getting out there to different settings is only going to make sure that you're solidifying your passion for PT, that you are meeting different PTs who may be able to write better recommendation letters for you, and that you're really seeing the variety that is PT. So one setting is not going to give you a full idea of what the profession is. Learn time management, how to successfully study, especially within our program. It is a full-time intensive program. So if you have a certain way of studying in undergrad, that may very well drastically change when you get into our program. Samantha Mundell has been doing a series of lunch and learns for our students just to go over kind of a lot of different time management and student experience topics. And I'm learning that a lot of our students from undergrad to grad have drastically changed. And then we also have some courses even built into our curriculum where things like time management and study skills are covered because it is such a drastic change. So having that foundational experience with time management and getting to know how you best learn in undergrad is only going to help you in a DPT program. How will you pay for a professional doctorate degree? So, two things here. If you are watching us and you are out of state, I just want you to know, let me open up these numbers really quick. The drastic difference between an in-state and out-of-state tuition. So if you are an out-of-state student, let me pull this over here. That's my face. Let's wait until I can see it on there as well. Okay, perfect. You'll see that the difference is incredibly drastic. So this is organized by year, so the numbers are going down because you're increasing your clinical hours outside of the classroom. But just that first year, an in-state student is expected to pay about $26,500, and an out-of-state student is paying about $64,500. So we only consider the top 10% of out-of-state students during the admissions process because of things like this. Because the tuition rate is just so ridiculously higher that out-of-state students don't accept offers. A way to get around that is to become an in-state student. So in order to do that, there are a few different things that you're going to have to do. The main one being living in Florida for a year. And then there are a few other things, making sure that your license is updated, making sure the car registration is updated. All of that is listed on the College of Graduate Studies under residency. It's also on the financial aid website in terms of residency. And these are things that we can't really control. So if you're looking at it and you're like, oh my God, this is crazy. Oh, don't want that. Just know that we can't help it. So you really need to follow all of the terms of residency in order to get that in-state tuition, which I highly recommend doing as soon as possible if you're thinking of the program, because that year could put you behind a year if you're planning on applying now and you're realizing just now that you would be having out-of-state tuition. Decide if making that move is right for you. And then in general, even if you're in state, you have to plan out how you'll pay for it. A lot of our students are taking out loans to pay for their time here. There are not a lot of scholarship opportunities for graduate students in general, but specifically for pre-professional programs. So a lot of our students are finding private scholarships if they're available, but the majority of our students are paying for their time here with loans. So really take the time to think that over and consider whether or not it's a realistic plan for you. Otherwise, get your ducks in a row. Make sure everything's set before you're doing this. This is a full-time professional program. You're not going to have a lot of time to do things like working in the program. You just won't. We highly recommend that students don't have a job outside of this program. You are going to really feel it in terms of relationships with the people around you. We highly recommend that our students still prioritize things like their social lives outside of the classroom, but realistically, you're not going to have as much time as you did before. So make sure that everything is ready for something like this. Chantel, the breaks within the program are the same as the school calendar breaks. So our program does follow the UCF academic calendar. And then also another key for success is just having a plan B. So let's say that you are preparing for our program and then in the middle of it you realize it's just not possible for whatever reason. Always have a plan B for things like this. You can be not even applying to our program yet and changing your mind. You can be 3 applications in and deciding that this isn't your strong suit. That's fine. Excuse me. Always have a plan B in mind. Oh, I'm going to go back over here. Boop. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of my face so you're not watching me watch this. And hopefully this works. But this is a video that's also on our YouTube channel, so if this doesn't work, definitely go and watch it later. It's just some of our students going over our classroom spaces and talking a little bit about the other lab spaces that we have off campus. So if you go to a physical open house, like I said at the very beginning of this, we do go through our classroom spaces and give you a little bit of a peek into what those look like, and that's one of the only times we're able to do that. But this video goes into those spaces as well. So let me go ahead and hide me. Okay, let's hope this works. Oh, nope. Hold on a second, everyone. Okay, it's not going to work. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to go ahead and try to open this video outside of it, and then I'll open it into this other window. You guys get to see me improv all of this really quickly, and hopefully this does not interrupt the stream. We'll find out. Perfect. All right. If this sounds horrible or anything like that, we'll find out. But if it does, like I said, this is also on our YouTube page. so you can always rewatch it there. And yes, Stephanie, this live stream will be available on our YouTube page as well. How does one do this? 1 second. Okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this link into the chat. That way you're not watching me do this over and over again. I did turn up the computer system volume. This is just me not being fully aware of how to stream. So we're going to just skip that for now, and then definitely look over that later. It's some of our current students going over our spaces, and it looks into our anatomy lab, so you get a quick preview of that. It also goes into our 2 lab classrooms, 231 and 250 in the HPA 1 building, and that's where most of our curriculum is happening, outside of that anatomy lab. We do have some courses that happen in different places on campus depending on availability and preferences from professors, but most of our classes are happening in those 2 classrooms. And then we also have off-campus spaces that the students talk about as well, including the iMove lab that I mentioned previously, Dr. Stock's lab, as well as Dr. Sony's lab. Some other highlights that aren't mentioned in that video that happen on campus sorry, are the student union. So that's sort of the student hub of UCF. So that's where things like a printing lab are, where people can print as much as possible. We do have also a grad lounge in our building that our students can print from. There's also the Graduate Student Center where students can print from as well. The student union also houses SGA's ticket booth. So a cool thing about UCF is that you also get discounts to local parks and local attractions through SGA. And the student union also houses a lot of food. So there are a few different spots on campus where people can buy food. The student union is going to house most of those. There are also a lot of other resources available that are mentioned in that video, including our library, ticket discounts like I mentioned, and that Graduate Student Center is really there for graduate students in general, so they're going to host a lot of different events. They're going to have a lot of different resources for grad students, and they kind of house the SGA portion of grad students as well, so things like funding are going to go through SGA and that office. So that is the majority of what I have to talk about. Talked for a little bit over an hour. I'm actually a little bit surprised. But I'm just going to awkwardly stare at the screen for a while and answer any questions you might have. So, oh, that's the wrong one. If you have questions for me, let me know. I'm going to sit on here for just a little bit longer. And then if I feel like questions are kind of winding down, I know Sam has answered a lot of them, but let me know. Chantel, the general student to faculty ratio, we have 12 full-time faculty, 11, 12, 11, I think, at the time. Right now, 10. So that many full-time faculty, and then 38 students per cohort, and we have 3 cohorts available. Oh yeah, a good point is talking about where our students live. All of our classrooms are on the main UCF campus, so a lot of our students do find housing nearby. There is housing available for grad students on campus. Most students don't take that route simply because they prefer to live in a private house, but there are things on campus, specifically the towers. Ninth Circle, which is directly off campus, also offers grad student housing. Most students are living together locally, kind of just behind UCF. And a cool thing that Sam does for new students is she does a Big Brother program where she pairs up second-year students with first-year students. And so a lot of students will find housing that way. You are also placed into a Facebook group when you join the program with your cohort. And so a lot of students find housing that way as well. I see a lot of clinical questions. Sam's pretty much covering those. This is the fun part, I guess. I'm just kind of sitting here waiting for questions, and then you get to see my delay. Yeah, the Nona question I do get a lot. As of right now, we do not have plans to move to Lake Nona. All of our classrooms are on main campus. And then, yeah, for clinicals, they don't have to be in Central Florida. Most are, but depending on availability and student interest, students also travel quite a few different states. There is a decent amount of group work specifically within research. So your capstone research project is a group project. Otherwise, as far as I know, there's not a lot of group work. It's really going to depend on the professor. That capstone project is the bulk of your group work within the curriculum. The research project can be published. It's not a requirement. Some students have done it. That really depends on a few different things, but some of our students have been published. That's a great question, Stephanie. How many days a week are the classes, and how many hours a day should I plan to be in class? Like I said, it is a full-time program, so consider it like a 9 to 5. Most of our classes are going to happen somewhere between 8 to 5 p.m. And there's obviously breaks in there for lunch, and not every day is going to be from 8 to 5. And then usually we try, as long as there's availability from faculty and from spaces, to have a day off every week. But that being said, most of our students are coming in anyway, whether that be for community projects, for studying, for getting time in the lab that they didn't have before. So a lot of our students are here ridiculous hours, really depending on what they need. The cool thing about our classroom spaces is that they are all 24/7 access, purely for our students, faculty, and staff. So all of the doors have key coding on them, so all of our students have that code. And then our students also, every cohort has one key to the building as well. So our students are able to come in even during the weekend. There are students in the office next to our suite right now just studying together on a Saturday, to give you an example. So our students, it's 9 to 5 roughly, but generally people are here outside of that. Shane, does the school offer service learning opportunities such as volunteering and free clinics? Great question. Yes. So the first thing that comes to mind is our Apopka clinic. That was, we go there multiple times a year, and there was something recently published about that, so you can go and check that out on our social media pages. We do a lot of other things in the community, and we try to share those as often as possible, but just know that some of those things are happening outside of what we're publishing. All of our faculty members bring our students to different things around Central Florida. So we're visiting geriatrics clinics, assisted living facilities. We are visiting different labs. We also have the interprofessional education opportunities that our students have. So multiple times during your now first year, previously only second and third, you are going to get together with nursing, psychology, social work, and a few other programs, and there's also publications on this as well, to really learn how the professions work together, and get experience before even going into the clinic, working with those different professions and how everything lines up. We believe that it's super important to know not only your job, but the job of those who are working with you. Go Baby Go is another great example. So there are a lot of things that our faculty are running that our students are also heavily a part of. Chantel, did we review the slide on the average GPA and GRE scores? We can definitely go back over that. So for I thought that was on there somewhere. Sorry if I just kind of skimmed over that. Our applicants, like I said previously, are very competitive. So just to give you an idea of averages for accepted students, let me see if I can find that. Okay, I think we did just kind of skim over this. Sorry about that. Let me put that up here. So our averages for the class of 2022, so this is we did accidentally skip that slide, sorry. Our GRE averages are a 154 for quantitative, 155 for verbal, and 4 for writing. And then our prereq GPA was a 3.75, and last 60, was a 3.76. So this is just the most recent cohort, but these are pretty accurate for the past quite a few cohorts. Usually it's around 155 for quantitative and verbal and a 4 for writing, and a 3.7 to 3.75 for both GPAs. So keep in mind that these are averages, so this can definitely this doesn't look like every student who's applying. Some people are getting above and some people are getting below these scores. And then if you have a lower score in one section, you can boost your application by having, let's say, a higher GRE score and a lower last 60. Your competitiveness for the program is really going to depend not only on your overall scores, so considering all three of those things together, but also the incoming application pool. So if you call me up and say, hey, am I going to get an interview? I might not have that answer for you because I don't know what all of these scores together are going to give you in terms of your rank, and I don't know the incoming application pool until we're already calling people. The average age of students in the program, it's really going to vary. Most students are coming either directly out of undergrad or a few years after, though we do have some students who are coming in definitely further on after undergrad. Maybe they're having a career change, maybe they went and got a master's degree in something else. So the ages really vary. Majority in their 20s, some in their 30s and 40s usually. Let's see, did I miss any other questions? All right, Stephanie, the question is, my first major was business and I have some business classes I didn't do too well in. Will those classes count towards my GPA for the DPT program? The answer is maybe, depending on when they happened. You said first major, so I'm assuming that they were earlier on in your curriculum, in which case probably not. The two GPAs that we're looking at are the prereq GPA and the last 60 credit hour GPA. So if those courses were part of your last 60 credit hours from your most recently obtained degree, then that will be considered. If they happened before that, it doesn't matter to us. The reason why we do the last 60 credit hours is because we know that going into college is a crazy experience for everyone. Some people are leaving home for the first time. Some people are not really sure how to settle into college culture. Some people are finding out that they're in the wrong major for them early on. So we're looking at that last 60 credit hour GPA only, as well as that prereq GPA. All right. Does anyone else have questions? I feel like I should have some music on in the background. All right, so if we keep having questions, I'll keep answering them, but if it looks like it's dwindling down, I just want to give you guys these resources now. Our program website is there. Definitely go on, look at our admissions page. All of this info is there as well as pages about our faculty members, pages about our research spaces, pages about a few different events that our program puts on to give you more of an overview of what our program is like and what we are able to do. We are also on social media, so the two that we really use a lot, don't use YouTube too much until now, is our Facebook page and our Twitter page. So go ahead and look that up. We are the UCF Division of Physical Therapy group on Facebook, and then our Twitter handle is UCF_DPT. You can also check out more info about PT, our application, the profession, at APTA and PTCAS. APTA is the American Physical Therapy Association. So if you have any questions about the PT profession, licensure, kind of what all this is, you can go to www.apta.org. And then PTCAS is that main application that I mentioned where everything is going. www.ptcas.org is where you can find not only admissions information in terms of the application process for us, but also application information for any other PT program that you're interested in. And you can also go there, like I said, early on and look at their application instructions and get more of a feel of exactly what's going to be expected of you when you are applying to that program. The two emails at the bottom are Sam and I. So the first one is Sam. Reach out to her if you are a reapplicant and you're trying to increase your competitiveness for the program during your second or third, etc. application to our program. Like I said, reaching out to her as a reapplicant is definitely going to be beneficial. She really takes the time to make sure that you're aware of how to best improve your application. So she's samantha.mundell@ucf.edu. And then my name is Samantha Jackson. I go by Jax. My email is samantha.jackson@ucf.edu. And I'm going to help you if you're a prospective student at any stage. So if you are just now getting into this and you have no idea if this is what you want to do, reach out to me. If you are very far in this process and you're applying right now, reach out to me. I do admissions advising appointments. So if you want to come in person, you can always come in and sit down with me in this office right here. I can also pick up the phone and chat with you. You can also email me right here, whatever questions you might have. I think we had one more question pop in there earlier. Is the last 60 credit hour GPA only considered at the time of application, or if I were to update my transcripts after this fall semester, would it change? It would change if you did the academic update period. So if you're doing the academic update period, you have to do it through PTCAS. Make sure that you're notifying on your application that you will be doing that later on. And then update course grades through the application, as well as submitting updated transcripts. And then John, my office is located in HPA 1. So if you're familiar with the UCF campus, that's the one with the Starbucks downstairs. And then I am in Suite 256, and I'm that middle office. So as soon as you come in through the doors, I'm the one who's going to come out and greet you, and we can always chat then. So this feels like a good time to kind of sign off. Sean, this video will be posted to YouTube. I will keep this on our page. I don't know if you can look back at the chat or not. This is just a fun technical question that I have no idea about, but I think that you can see chats from live stream after you're done, but you will definitely see the video, and I hope that I answered most of the chat questions in this video anyway. If you come back to this later and you realize that there's a question that wasn't answered, like I said, feel free to reach out to me. Sam, can you think of anything else I haven't covered? I wonder how much of a delay there is. All right, well, I'm still waiting for a reply because the delay is considerable. But I just want to thank all of you for watching us on your Saturday. I hope that this was helpful. We'll definitely look into doing more of these virtual open houses for people who may not be able to get out to us. And I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your weekend. I'm going to go ahead and stop the stream now. So like I said, if you have any questions moving forward, reach out to us. Have a great weekend.